first panel for the day is something to do with mergers and acquisitions. Stats say that mergers and acquisition deals in the technology sector grew 31% annually over the past 5 years. And our next panel is going to be all on that. We have, technology deals are shifting from scale to scope. And the panel topic is going to be tech, startups, business, and Infonomics. We have Burgess Cooper, partner at EY, Joerg Simon, director of securities at Audius, and Sourabh, who's the CEO of CloudSEK. Friends, these are really esteemed panelists from all over the world, Bangalore, Germany, and Bombay. They are friends of ours and the Nullcon family. They have been supporting us for a real long time. And it's always a pleasure to learn from each one of these three. I personally enjoy talking to all of them. And on a side note, Burgess and Joerg both have been my great mentors and backbone for a while. I have a close association and bond with them. So always good to hear you guys. Burgess, I would like you to start with the moderation and the panel session.
Thank you so much, Antrix, for the nice words. Happy to start and happy to be part of the Nullcon family. So today's topic, as you mentioned, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you log in from. Hope you're safe and sound. The topic is tech startups, business, and Infonomics. So what's the real abstract challenge? What are the challenges we face to evaluate mergers and acquisitions, especially in the area of technology startups? What would be a smart way to support this tech due diligence? And investing in startups is always a bit risky, but the success is even more significant if we have placed our bets in the right idea. It's essential to reveal the hidden risks right at the beginning. And for this, I will now give it to my fellow panelists to give their introduction. So Joerg, from your perspective, what makes a successful startup? What has been your experience? And your first few words on this topic, followed by Sourabh.
Yeah, thanks, Burgess. The thing, startup, I have multiple places where I'm confronted or working in startups. Audius even founded its own startup in India in 2019. Even have, when we have a very solid foundation here in Europe and in Germany for India, it was really like the foundation of a new startup with a new market. And we came to India with our goal to establish our not only brand, but also our service in India. So we really face the same issue that a normal startup has. And especially with 2020 situation, it was not an easy start, but we had 1 month after foundation, we had our first clients, and then we just had to stop business in March, and then we had some months where we tried to reinvent ourselves and just try to find out what should we do in this kind of situation. And I think what makes a startup successful is being focused on what you wanted to do, but also be prepared that maybe nothing will go like you have planned in the beginning. Then the other place where I'm coming from with the startup ecosystem is that over the years, with our clients asked us about operational due diligence for their acquisitions. So more and more, especially industry companies which are leading in what they are doing, like automotive companies and so on, don't put too much energy in research anymore. They try to acquire startups with good ideas, with good business models, to scale up their research faster and to integrate new technologies faster. And so from what we have seen there, by supporting the classical advisory and financial due diligence, we saw a lot of mistakes that startups can do, especially in Infonomics. Yeah, and from this experience, I think I can contribute to this panel also with some examples that I have seen in the past.
We'll get there, George. Thank you. Sourabh, your perspective. What makes a successful startup, and what's your perspective on this Infonomics?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Burgess. So very glad to be here. Burgess probably represents a good company who might end up acquiring us, and George represents someone who might help him in doing that. So very self-serving of me to be on this group. But yeah, I think great point was just bringing that up. What makes a successful startup, right? So being part of one for the last 3 years has been a roller coaster of a journey, especially coming from a very corporate kind of background. I would say 2-3 things. Right? I was thinking about this, in fact, the last few days on a different context. First of all, I would say would be like a state of mind, right? A state of mind which varies somewhere in between optimism, paranoia in equal parts, and just bullheaded persistence, right? Just staying at it. So that's what I would say from a state of mind perspective. The second is in terms of the tech or whatever you're trying to do, whatever problem you're trying to solve, having the right people, staying ahead of the curve, being technologically superior, being good at disrupting the market, whatever angle you're trying to do, but staying ahead, because competition does catch up. It's a very volatile world, right? And you don't have, it's not like a startup is doing something in millions of dollars already in capital sunk costs, which has a moat. There is no such moat, right? Others can come in. And most importantly, and this is probably the most important one, don't run out of money, right? So have the funds to pay salaries. That's my job as a CEO, at least for the next 6 months, which might mean that you're constantly fundraising, which is absolutely fine. You need to do that. So I would say those are the 2 or 3 things, which I would say very important for a startup to succeed, survive, and make it through.
Thank you so much, Sourabh. I like the part, don't run out of money. It's a state of mind from optimism to paranoia, but with bullheaded persistence. We are often defined by our failures. Can each of you give me one example where you nearly thought you failed, or you failed and you bounced back? Because in this forum, we'll have so many people, so many ambitious people who want to start their own startups, and they may face that occasional, hopefully not, opportunity of failure. And how should they leverage that from your strength, from your experience, to bounce back?
Yeah, should I start? Yeah. I think 2019, 2020 situation that we had with Audius India is just kind of that. So we came with our business idea, bringing our infrastructure maturity assessments to India, which are kind of unique and which require to be on site. Which requires people to be at the client's place. And with 2020, this was no longer possible. So we needed to reinvent everything. And we even discussed, does it make sense to have this company after all this pain creating it in India? It was not easy, not being from India itself. But definitely we discussed and what should we do. And with the help of Indian friends, we developed technology to be able to do our job without being physical on site. So it created an opportunity out of something where we thought is necessary, which we found out it's not necessary if you put more efforts in it and if you try to do something maybe different and unique from what you have thought you should do before. So that's, I think, what makes us at the moment seeing a scaling up with what we are doing at the moment. And even in the past, I have similar experiences, maybe also being too early for the market. So that's something I would say in the early 2000s when I wanted to start with open source software development, where I worked a lot in communities, not making money out of it, just doing it for fun, and then trying it to bring it into my company at this time to build something out of it. And if you are too early, if you are not able to make your point, what does it bring to your customer, you will not make it through as a startup, and maybe you need to wait until the market is ready for you. And I think that's also for all the startups the major issue, that sometimes they don't see the benefit right away. You see it clearly, but sometimes you are not even able to transport this message, and then maybe you need someone who helps you to do that. And I think companies like yours, Burgess, are really good at that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sourabh, opportunity for failure. What does one learn in your real life experience for the audience?
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Burgess. So, yeah, March, if you think about it, right, our company, I would say CloudSEK till about March of last year, the last 6 months, we had totally been focused on ramping up our outside India operations, right? Middle East, Southeast Asia, etc. And then suddenly March hit, and we could not travel. And oh my God, it was a tough time, right? We were staring down, and it was like we got into the mode of batten down the hatches, prepare for a long slog, go into like the hibernation mode, figure out what to do. And also from a fundraising perspective, we were at a very critical juncture at that time. I mean, I can't reveal a lot of those details, but yeah, that it was like the worst case scenario for us. And we thought what to do. I think that's where, in tough times, right, you have to figure out what your strengths are. Our strengths were agility. We could, as they say, turn on a dime, right? We immediately repurposed all our available assets back to India, right? We totally changed the strategy. We started realizing there was a huge opportunity, for example, at that time, because of the whole work from home movement, right? A lot of from a security perspective, we focused on that, and we were able to keep the clock ticking and the things moving during the lockdown, right? Thanks to that. And now obviously things are starting to improve, and we are kind of coming out of our winter hibernation holes, and which is great. But I think, yeah, that's it. It's all about figuring out and being agile, being open, and not letting adverse circumstances shut you down. Most important.
I like that. Coming out of the winter hibernation, keep the clock ticking. In tough times, figure out your strengths, prepare for the long slog, and go into hibernation. Well said. What type of help is available during these times? Was it your only on in grit determination and dogmatism which helped you there, or were you able to get help from either external government organizations or industry friends or mentors? Is that an internal slog process? As you reflect back, or did you reach out to somebody who gave a helping hand and said, wow, that helping hand really helped?
Yeah, so from my perspective, network is everything. So of course, here in Europe, we have help from the government, but for our Indian venture, we had not. So yeah, so you really have to rely on the network that you already have, and they helped us a lot. And especially open source communities can be very helpful by developing the technology that you have, but they can also, yeah, this can also be tricky, because if you fully put on to open source software, that can also create some dependencies if you are not a contributor to that, so that you might have some dependencies to libraries which are even have a non-permissive library or something like that, that maybe puts you in position where you cannot use your business model anymore. And here it's really, really helpful to have this kind of a network that supports you even in the crisis. If you have to do something and you have to develop something that you have not planned in the beginning, to get to be fast. And I think that's constantly reaching out, working with multiple ecosystems at the same time, having maybe also or investing in relationships to the government is definitely helpful. But without a network, to be honest, that's not possible, especially with my experiences that I has as a German in India. It's extra special difficult. So my help definitely came from the Null community and from the friends who are there, also from the daily community, and of course also Andrich and friends. So that's helped us a lot during this time.
I don't know what's this common thing. Antish keeps on helping everybody. I wonder what's the.
Just like Sourabh said that you might buy his company out, I'm assuming next year you'll sponsor me.
There, I saw that's the thing. Great, thanks. So who helped you besides Antriksh?
In India, especially the Interguest in Mumbai, which is our lawyer. So he connected us to potential clients, also high-ranking clients, who gave us insight in how large Indian corporations work and how they could, or better, how could we work together with them to get our product in their organizations, and finding out if it's possible even in this kind of crisis. So this would be one example. Also, I got good feedback from Sandeep Singh. I hope he's here in the session, because I asked him about finding the right people for our startup is also something really important, because if you have something, if you have someone who is able to do the job and he leaves the startup, then that's definitely super dangerous for the startup, because your whole startup can fail if this person is the only one and he leaves the company. And so Sandeep and Vaibhav also, they gave me some hints what I should do in India and what not.
Thank you. Sourabh, over to you. Who helped you?
Yeah, thanks. So I think in full fairness, right, there were a couple of customers who we did approach and who did help us by either, helping us out with either the payments or the business or the contracts, etc. But frankly, also, who could have helped us, right? Not many companies. Our customers themselves were also in the same soup we were in, right? They were facing the same lockdown situation. Business was tanking. They were facing the same challenges. In fact, a very interesting thing happened. We had spare capacity. We did not wanted to let people go. So then we started thinking, what do we do, right? And then we tried to think, how can we help these people, in the hope that, okay, when the grass turns green again, they might, remember that. And so some of the programs, a couple of programs we started during that time, it actually, created a lot of goodwill, which we are now, all set to reap the benefits of, in terms of helping people do some analysis, do some vulnerability scans, etc., stuff like that, right? Which they did not have the money to pay for at that time, but they needed it. They needed it more than ever. In fact, another thing we did, and that was more on the B2B part, right? Helping our customers. We also thought about what we could do with community. We had so many friends, so many community members who had lost jobs. So in fact, we allocated some funds. We started out a kind of a program wherein anyone who has lost a job can apply for a internship with us. It's like a 3-month work and you get paid for it, right? As a way to kind of help them go get through like financial crunch situation. And I think that helped us a lot, right? Frankly, it's I don't hold any grudges about anyone else or any other government or anyone in helping us, because the avenues themselves were limited. Like, I don't know what could have been done. Maybe I'm unaware of that front.
Thanks, Sourabh. And touching, although you were struggling, you ensured you put out a thing of, if anybody else lost a job, you could give them internship when the grass turns green again. Spare capacity, didn't want to let people go. Who could have helped you is more important. Lovely. Sometimes we say, better the question, better the answer, better the world works. It's all about the right question you ask and how a key person can make or mar a company. Okay, so great. You were in tough times. You come out happily. Hopefully, you'll have a great success run from here. What about attracting the right talent? How would you go about in that startup stage when there are other companies who'd pay top dollar? And I know, sometimes we lose people, in big fours, and we are surprised that you want to join a startup when I'm going to give you so much experience, and they say, yes, I want that just of a startup. The rush is great. What's your magic? How do you attract key talent?
Yeah, that's especially very, very tough. Yeah.
Sourabh can start. I think he wants to start.
Yeah, Sourabh, sorry. Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So we have gone from 8 to 80 in about 2 years. Yeah. So and we obviously can't afford to pay anywhere close to what the big fours pay in a way. So yeah, we leverage our strengths. I personally experienced it, right? Coming from a large company, I can do in a day what I do in a startup. I can do it in a day. It would take me a month to do it in a large company, right? It's that fast, that agile. the whole culture, the ability to. So I mean, we have a very simple saying. For example, if you look at our teams, right? Probably 5 of the people who are heading the largest teams in my company started their first job with us about 2 to 5 years ago, in that range. So imagine someone with 3 to 4 years of experience running a team of 7 to 10 people, having a huge responsibility. It'll take them 20 years to get there in a large company, right? Also, and this is something which I heard back from the employees, right? They came to me with an idea, or me, or any of the other managers, and we said, okay, go ahead, do it. And they were like shocked. Are you kidding me? They said, like in my earlier company, it would go to a committee, take 6 months for the decision to be made. I said, yeah, go do it. Here's your budget. I want to see a result in like a month. And they were like shocked beyond belief. Yeah, that's our strength. We play to it. That's probably the best way. And then obviously give them a learning environment. Make sure they're challenged enough. As easy as it is to hire with that promise, it's equally easy to lose if you're not delivering on that promise, because the layer of money, the layer of position, stable job is always there. Yeah.
Excellent insights. Yeah. Giving them the promise, shock beyond belief, and agility is what you can. Other guys could do in a week. Your job perspective, what's your magic for attracting top talent?
Yeah, I think it's indeed freedom. Of course, freedom in borders that you have common values or a common goal. But we just hired a talent who just came from a company, and she worked. So she had to start with us, and we just told her we cannot pay you what you have had in this large funded company, so she was ready to really let a lot of money go just for working with us, to have the opportunity, to have the freedom to develop her own project or her own product with, I would say, the freedom of entrepreneurship within a startup is something which can be very attractive for experienced people. But also, I think having a place for people who are fresh from the university, giving them a good mentorship is something which is more valuable for them often than money. Because that's what I have seen during my time in open source project like Fedora project, as example, where I had the ability to learn. So I came from military background. I had no idea how the industry worked. I had no idea how open source ecosystems really worked, and I made it to the Fedora board just as not commercially. It was really just a hobby for me in the beginning, and I learned so much from that, and I was even ready to work there without getting paid. So I think the freedom and if you find the right people that have the drive to develop themselves, then they are good for you and your startup, definitely.
How long is an average tenure of a person in a startup? Does he stay from hire to, or does he like 3-4 years, or what's the average time span a person stays in a startup from a new employee? I like what you mentioned. Attracting for freedom of entrepreneurship is a great attraction for experienced people, while for new people it's a good mentorship. So how long does the person stay in a startup?
Oh, that's definitely different. I not want to talk only about our company. So what I've seen over the years with the companies we worked with is that we had one company in Singapore where the core team was there since 12 years. So the question is after 12 years, is this still a startup? And then we had another company in Berlin where they had a really high fluctuation. And to be honest, the maturity of the product, they had some kind of the same product, which was in building automation and measuring power consumption, and also taking the numbers out of the power consumption and put it in some Infonomics magic. And the maturity of the product in Singapore was higher. But of course, the dependency of the technology was a problem, because the technology under the hood was also quite old, and the dependencies even were so old that you could not deliver the devices to the clients. or other way around, they already had devices in the field. So maybe having this kind of long startup phase is not beneficial for the product in form of dependencies, but in this case, it was for maturity in the functional requirements. And the Berlin company was super fast. They were super interesting, but they had, of course, not the basis of a solid product. So everything was proof of concept. Everything was, oh, don't press this button because then we don't know really what happens. So, and the fluctuation here was quite high. I would say 2 years was the fluctuation. And for our company, of course, we try to have a sustainable relationship and try to give an environment so they can grow within the company. But that's the thing, because we are some kind of a hybrid, because we have a mother company who is have a good funding or is on solid base, and we can finance our startup approaches from these companies.
Yeah. Sourabh, is there a part of a culture, would people in India be staying longer or shorter compared to people in West or other places for startups?
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe I've not done enough analysis, but I mean, let me talk to you about my experience, right? I would broadly put people in 3 or 4 buckets. See, one thing to realize about startups is that there is no pyramid here. It's not like the top 10, bottom 20, and mid 70, right? To be successful in startup, you need the top cream of the talent, right? Otherwise, you can't run it effectively. Which means that, so for example, there's one bucket of people who usually leave within 2 to 3 months. Those are the wrong hires, right? Or the performance-related issues or whatever it is. There's another set of people who might leave within 10 to 12 months. Those are the people who where the sheen of a startup life wears off, right? The late nights get too much. They want the stability, want the whatever the business class travel, and they go back, right? Then you have the third set, which is like who leave after 2, 3 years and go start a business of their own, right? Those are good people. I like that, right? That's good. But at least for us, the major part is the rest, maybe the 70, 80% who are left over, who just don't leave, who are vested into the company, right? That is the only way you will make it work. Right? There's no other way you can make it work. You have to have that core team who's totally committed, who are all aligned to the true north, and they are working with you through thick and thin. And there will be thick and thin in a startup.
Have to have the core team. I'm taking down notes and I'm going to give in the end. Have to have the core team aligned to the true north. I like that word. So, and basically we are in Nullcon. Antriksh always gets the best talent. It's the best hiring ground. And he's smiling now. I have to please him, right? He told me to say some good words. How important is for people to have a tech idea of a good startup or a good process idea? Is tech largely the component, or could you have a process way of doing a startup, something better, smarter? And would you find people just migrating to a great tech idea? Is tech have so much of a high attracting factor, or could there be other areas of a smarter, simpler process which a business may buy, or just a tech attracts? What is that magic? Is tech completely taking over the startups, or process ideas of startups could also make a difference?
Yeah, okay. I think tech, of course, is something that is super attractive, but also dangerous when the investors don't understand in what they're investing to. So from my perspective, technology is around 80% of the investment reasons that we see with our clients, and not process. So from the scope of the investments that we see, it's more about the technology. I can imagine that smart process ideas, or the combination of smart process ideas, can attract, but to be honest, I don't see it very much. And I think the danger with investing in technology without knowing in what you really invest is, so of course they all will tell you that their tech is superior to the competitor. They will say, hey, we don't even have a competitor competitor because we are first, different, unique. That's something where I think here the due diligence process also needs to get enhanced, and to make an analysis under the hood of the technology is something I would say is a challenge for the next period, to find out ways, finding metrics, finding the right skills, how to analyze if a technology really is worth investing to. Because otherwise the owner of the company always will give you the best picture of his product, of course, right?
Saurabh?
Yeah, so I think one time you can probably pat yourself on the back. I don't think I don't know how much process optimization opportunities are left. I think you guys have done a great job of sorting that problem out. All the big four, the strategy consulting companies and all. But yeah, obviously that's one of the reasons tech is very overwhelmingly dominant in all new startups. You look at the fundraise pattern, it's the same. All the big money is going to tech startups. Does not mean that there's nothing left to innovate in that on the process side. I'm sure there is, but yeah, I see a lot of dominance for the tech side, frankly. And tech, okay, one more point, right? It also depends how you define tech. What is tech? Is tech just the technology? Is it the algorithm? Is it what systems you're using? Is it your data? Is it the way you're analyzing that data? Right? In fact, we did this introspection a few months ago and realized that for us, IP and tech, it's not just the algorithms or something. It's so much more. And very, very revelatory for us, actually.
Thanks. And you give a good point, Saurabh. Where does a company like startup align with a big four or a start consulting firm, and how do you find that?
So, you want me to go first, Burgess?
Sure, you're keen to go first. Go ahead.
No,
I can feel the energy.
See, look at it this way, right? We are startups are the group which can try fast, fail fast, innovate fast, right? And obviously, so that's what our DNA is, right? If you look at a big four is where it's more thought through, it's more deliberate, it's much more strong, industrial strength, right? Those are two very complementary skill sets. The idea is, how do we create a funnel wherein some of the best ideas from the startups are finding their ways into the ecosystem of a big four, right? And I mean, I don't think it's a case of a white space. There are enough and more systems which are happening there, right? All the big fours. Obviously, we collaborate on the industry level. I've worked with you so many times, right? And then even from a venture investment perspective, also there are a lot of overlays. So I think that part is covered. Obviously, you have to give a longer leash to startups because a lot of the startup work is a little bit of the Wild West and very culturally deviated from how big fours operate. So I think that's probably the only thing to keep in mind from my perspective.
Sure. Any questions from the audience? Would you want to ask a very tough questions besides joining them? And they're always going to say yes for the best talent to Nullcon. But any audience questions to me or to?
Yeah, I have a question. The audience can also send in questions on the Zoom chat. Define a startup. At what stage are you at a startup? Because there are fancy companies who have billions of dollars of money in their bank account and they still call them startups. So is the word startup just a sexy name given to a company? Or it's actually when a company is, you say, less than 20 people or 20 employees or less than a certain threshold of turnover? So how do you define a startup? Any one of you?
Yeah, Raj, why don't you go ahead?
I should, yeah. So I know I think if you Google it, you will get some explanation for it. But for me, a startup is more something like how you, it's something that you have in yourself. So if you are driven by a product or by an idea that you want to bring to the market and where you have passion for and want to develop it, want to build a team around it, want to make benefit out of it for your clients. You can do that in a large corporate, but you can, of course, do it maybe not this fast in a corporate if they don't have the structure for it. And you always will have these boundaries that maybe will put up barriers for you where you have to report some success, some time. And so I think startup for me is something you have the freedom to develop something that makes the world better, that helps your client, that's something that you can drive. And I think this can be kind of a mission, because I would put it in a time frame, because I'm in open source project since, I would say, 20 years, and I maintained Fedora Security Lab together with Fabian Affolter since, I would say, 10 years. Of course, we make it for fun and not for money, but we definitely bring a benefit for the community, and we have people who are using it. And I think if you want to scale it up and you want to find an investor for that, that's also possible. So I also call this a startup idea, but I would not put it in some kind of, okay, that's the definition. You have to be 2 years in the market, and after 4 years you have to be you have to have break even, and after 6 years you have to be able to sell it to someone. I don't think that's the definition of a startup.
So, Sourabh, if you have to define startup in one word, what would that be? Nimble, align, agile? Both of you. Sorry, mentality.
Mentality. Yeah.
And for you, George?
That's the word that I was maybe looking for and not found.
He stole it.
No, but so I'm not a native speaker, so sometimes it's a bit
What's a word in
difficult.
German? What's a German word for that? Give me a German word for that. For startup.
Mentalität. That's
Mentalität. I like that. Any more questions? I would like to summarize 3 pages of notes. Lovely catches I've got. But
there are 2 questions in the chat. I'll just take them and then you can summarize, Burgess. How cybersecurity getting embedded in startup ecosystem different from a large corporate? I think, Burgess, you have the largest corporation among the panelists.
Thank you. So let's get the margin aside. Yeah, the technical discussion. So the question is, how is cybersecurity? And I think each one of us, even in a large corporate, I have to run my business as an entrepreneurship, right? We may have a funding, but I am faced with the same challenges, hiring the best talent, which Sourabh or George may take from us, pay a bit less extra, but the agility and the freedom you give your guys, I may or may not be always give to. I may give a varied experience. I may give a person an opportunity to work in manufacturing, healthcare, retail, banking, telecom, and a breadth of sometimes can work in CTI, and then you can migrate to VAPT, and then red teaming and threat hunting and compliance. So we have the ability to fluctuate that and give a person a rounded experience where you have a pointed advantage. If someone's in depth, you can go to the nth depth and he can become a master of that. So there's no plus or minus much. It just depends on the person's individuality of what he or she is looking at that point in time. But the startup culture is something what I run and what you run. Similarly, because we also have to ensure that we run our own business. We compete with the very best of startups as well as the traditional SI firms who are also in cyber. It's a growing area. But the best part, it's a pie which is ever expanding. There's space for all of us to work together. There's no need for, the pie is not shrinking. You know, luckily, touch wood, we're in an industry which is growing. And for the next 10 years, there's enough amount of growth for everybody. The key question is, how do we synergize? How do we harmonize? And that's a Sourabh. Now, how can Big Four people work with you guys? How can we encourage you? We have some cushion you may not have, but you have good talent which we may not have. You got good IP, which we may take years to develop. And I see a big synergy in that. I'm thinking a good answer, hopefully.
Absolutely. But we would want to know your margins also in the future sometime.
For another day, for another Nullcon. Maybe in Goa next time. All right, I'm going to summarize some of the lovely words which we had. Solid foundation. Nothing will go as planned in the beginning. Don't put too much energy in research. A good company may acquire last 3 years. roller coaster ride of a journey. It's a state of mind. Don't run out of cash. Opportunity for failure. Begin too early for the market. Create an operating out of the current situation. Not making money out of it, doing it out of fun. Need to wait until the market is ready for it. Unable to transport out of it. Prepare for the long slog. Go into hibernation. In tough times, figure out your big strengths. Keep the clock ticking, and then come out of winter hibernation. 12 years, is it still a startup? Trying to have sustainable relationships. 3 buckets, not pyramid. Sheet of startup wears off for people. How to make the core team last for a long time. Tech is superior, attractive, but also dangerous for investors who don't understand it. They will tell you our tech is superior than somebody else. They'll even tell you we don't have competition. Put on the lock. Define how you define technology, algorithms, data. Startups fail to innovate fast. How to create a funnel. Longer bench strength for startups. Give them a longer rope. Companies with dollars in their bank, but still have a sexy name of startup. Startup is not something you put. You invest inside. The one word is mentality or Mentalität in German. Freedom to do what you have to. Last page. Network is everything. In Europe, you had government help. Open source communities were helpful. Not planned in the beginning to be fast. Invest in relationships. Expense as a German in India. High-ranking clients. How large Indian conglomerates work, and more important, how you could add favor in them. Find the right people and stick to them. Who could have helped more is the more important question. We had spare capacity, but yet you chose to give people who lost a job to get some money. When the grass turns green, you will profit. Anyone lost a job can do internship from 8 to 80 in 2 years. Do in a day what other companies do in a month. More agility, and the key word is freedom with boundaries of, as George mentioned, common value, common goal, and as Sourabh mentioned, clearly the one word which I think was the best was mentality and a state of mind. I enjoyed modern discussion, as I always had fun with Antriksh and Nullcons. I hope you enjoyed and learned some part from it. Over to you, Antriksh.
Thank you so much, Burgess, Joerg, and Sourabh. This was really insightful. Joerg, I can't pronounce the word in German, but I like the word that you said, mentality and freedom. Burgess, amazing as a moderator. We would want you to hold back for the next panel as well. So thank you, Sourabh. Thank you, Joerg. Friends, if you have any more questions, and if I want to work for any of these startups, except for one large corporation, please reach out to them on LinkedIn or Twitter. They both have their own pros and cons, but I think working with all 3 of them, it's a great experience as well. So yeah.
Thank you, friends. Thanks, George. Thanks, Sourabh. Stay well.
Thank you. Jay Nullcon.